Marriage was supposed to be a sacred bond, a partnership built on trust, love, and commitment. For 8 years, Sarah and I shared what I thought was a happy life. We had met in college, and from the moment I saw her, I believed she was the one. She was smart, beautiful, and driven, a perfect combination that made me feel lucky to have her by my side. After graduation, we got married, bought a modest home, and started building a future. I worked long hours as an IT specialist, ensuring we had financial stability, while Sarah pursued her passion for interior design. Together, we were a team, or so I thought. It started subtly. Sarah began spending more time on her phone, laughing at texts she wouldn't share with me. She would cancel our dinner plans last minute, claiming she was swamped with work or meeting a friend. At first, I dismissed it as stress or busyness, something every couple faces eventually. But over time, the distance between us grew. Conversations became shorter, and the warmth in her voice disappeared. She no longer greeted me at the door when I came home late, tired from work. Instead, I'd find her on the couch, scrolling through her phone, barely acknowledging my presence. I blamed myself for the growing gap. Maybe I wasn't doing enough. Maybe my long hours at work were making her feel neglected. One night, everything changed. Sarah had cooked dinner, which was rare these days. I was eager to enjoy a quiet evening together, to reconnect. As we sat at the table, she set her fork down and looked at me with an intensity one hadn't seen before. Her words came out steady and rehearsed. "I've been thinking, maybe we should try an open marriage." I froze, my fork halfway to my mouth.
"What?"
I finally managed to say, unsure if I had heard her correctly. "I think it could be good for us," she continued, her tone unnervingly casual. "You're always busy with work, and I feel like we've lost the spark. Exploring other connections might help us find it again." Her words were a punch to the gut. My wife, the woman I had devoted my life to, was asking for permission to be with someone else. I struggled to process what she was saying. "Is there someone else already?" I asked, my voice trembling. She hesitated, then shrugged. "Not exactly. There's someone I've been talking to, but it's nothing serious. This isn't about him, it's about us."
Us.
That word stung more than anything. She was framing this betrayal as something beneficial for our marriage. I wanted to yell, to demand answers, but all I could do was sit there, stunned. After what felt like an eternity, I nodded slowly. "If this is what you want, then fine." Her face lit up, as if she'd just received my blessing. She had no idea what I was really thinking. Beneath my calm exterior, a storm was brewing. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. Over the next few days, I began to notice more signs that Sarah had been planning this for a while. She spent hours texting and would leave the room to take calls. Her excuses became flimsier, and she started coming home late without explanation. Meanwhile, I kept my emotions in check, pretending to accept her terms while quietly preparing for what I knew needed to be done. If she wanted an open marriage, she'd get one, just not in the way she imagined. The first step was gathering evidence. I started keeping track of her behavior, saving screenshots of her texts whenever she left her phone unattended. I installed a small GPS tracker on her car, a precaution that confirmed my suspicions. She was meeting someone regularly, a man named Eric. Seeing his name in her messages made my blood boil, but I forced myself to remain calm. I wasn't going to confront her, not yet.
I needed to be smart about this.
I contacted a lawyer, someone I trusted, to keep things discreet. I explained the situation and shared the evidence I had collected. The lawyer assured me that with this information, I could protect myself financially in the event of a divorce. That was all I needed to hear. Over the next few weeks, I continued to gather proof, all while acting like nothing was wrong. Sarah seemed oblivious to my plans, caught up in her newfound freedom. She would come home late, sometimes not at all, and I'd hear her laughing on the phone as if nothing had changed. One evening, she came home wearing a dress I hadn't seen before. She looked happy, too happy. "I had dinner with Eric," she admitted, as if it were no big deal. "He's really great to talk to. I think you'd like him." I clenched my jaw, biting back the anger that threatened to surface. "That's nice," I said, forcing a smile. Inside, I was seething. This was the woman I had married, someone I had once trusted with my heart. Now, she was openly flaunting her infidelity, confident that I would continue to support her while she explored her connections. But she was wrong. Very wrong. The turning point came a few weeks later. I returned home earlier than expected from work to find Sarah and Eric in our living room. They were sitting close, laughing over a bottle of wine, as if they owned the place. Sarah looked startled when she saw me, but Eric remained smug, as if daring me to say something. I didn't. Instead, I nodded politely and went upstairs, pretending not to care. That night, I finalized my plan. The next morning, I told Sarah I needed to travel for work and would be gone for a few days. She barely looked up from her phone, muttering something about how she'd be fine. Little did she know, I wasn't going on a work trip. I was meeting with my lawyer to finalize the divorce papers. Everything was ready. The evidence, the financial agreements, and the arrangements to serve her the papers. I felt a strange sense of calm as I signed the documents, knowing that justice was within reach. When I returned home, Sarah was in the kitchen, humming to herself as she prepared dinner. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. "We need to talk," I said, my voice steady. She turned around, confused. "What's wrong?" I placed the divorce papers on the counter. "This is what you wanted, right? Freedom." Her face turned pale as she scanned the documents. What is this?" "It's over, Sarah," I said, my tone firm. "You wanted an open marriage, and now you have one. Permanently." For the first time in weeks, Sarah was at a loss for words. She stammered, trying to defend herself, but I cut her off. "I've already spoken to a lawyer. Everything is in place. You can keep your connections with Eric or whoever else. I'm done." She started to cry, but her tears didn't move me. This was the woman who had broken my trust, who had made me feel like I wasn't enough. Now, she was facing the consequences of her choices. That night, Sarah packed her things and left. As I watched her drive away, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. I wasn't just ending my marriage, I was reclaiming my life. Little did Sarah know, this was only the beginning of her downfall. The days after Sarah left felt strangely peaceful. For the first time in years, the house was quiet, free from the tension that had weighed me down. But beneath that calm exterior, I was far from finished. Sarah might have walked out, but the consequences of her choices were just beginning to unfold. I had made sure of it. I had already secured the house in the divorce settlement, thanks to the airtight evidence of her infidelity. My lawyer had been meticulous, ensuring that Sarah couldn't claim a single penny beyond what was legally required. Her affair with Eric had cost her dearly, and she was now on her own. What she didn't know, however, was that her new life with Eric wasn't going to be as glamorous as she imagined. A week after she moved out, I received an unexpected phone call. It was from one of Sarah's former friends, someone I hadn't spoken to in years. She was calling to warn me that Eric wasn't who Sarah thought he was. He had a reputation for using women to climb the social ladder, then abandoning them when they were no longer useful. Hearing this, I couldn't help but smirk. It seemed Sarah had traded a stable, loyal husband for a con artist who would take advantage of her at her most vulnerable. I didn't have to wait long to see the fallout. Within a month, Sarah started reaching out. At first, it was subtle, texts asking about paperwork, casual questions about how I was doing. Then came the calls, her voice trembling as she hinted at regrets. I ignored them all. She had made her bed, and now she had to lie in it. Meanwhile, I focused on rebuilding my life. I started hitting the gym regularly, something I hadn't done in years. I reconnected with old friends, people I had drifted away from during my marriage. For the first time in a long while, I felt free. The anger and bitterness that had consumed me were slowly being replaced by a sense of empowerment. I was moving on, and it felt incredible. One evening, I decided to reward myself with a night out. I went to a bar I hadn't visited in years, a place Sarah had always disliked. As I sat there nursing a drink, I couldn't help but overhear a familiar voice. Turning around, I saw Eric at the other end of the bar, chatting up a younger woman. He was all charm, leaning in close as he spun some tail design to impress her. I watched for a moment, disgusted but not surprised. Then, an idea struck me. I pulled out my phone and snapped a quick photo of Eric and his new conquest. It wasn't hard to find Sarah's number. I still had it saved. Without a second thought, I sent her the photo with a simple message: "This is the man you left me for. Good luck." Within minutes, my phone buzzed with a response. It was Sarah calling me. I let it ring. The next day, I found out through mutual acquaintances that Sarah and Eric had broken up. Apparently, she had confronted him about the photo, and things had escalated quickly. Eric, true to form, had walked away without a second thought, leaving Sarah to pick up the pieces. Part of me felt vindicated, but another part of me realized just how far I had come. I didn't need her misery to validate my happiness anymore. As the weeks turned into months, my life continued to improve. I got a promotion at work, thanks to the extra time and energy I could now devote to my career. I started dating again, cautiously at first, but soon found myself enjoying the company of someone new. Her name was Emily, a kind and genuine woman who reminded me of what a healthy relationship should feel like. She wasn't flashy or dramatic like Sarah. She was real, and that was exactly what I needed. But Sarah wasn't done with me yet. One day, I received an email from her. It was long and rambling, filled with apologies and regrets. She admitted that she had made a mistake, that she had been selfish and short-sighted. She wanted to meet, to talk things through, and see if we could find a way back to each other. I stared at the email for a long time before deleting it. There was nothing left to say. Around the same time, Sarah's life seemed to spiral further out of control. She had lost her job, thanks to the chaos she had brought into her own life. Eric had left her in debt, and she was struggling to make ends meet. She even reached out to some of my friends, hoping they would convince me to take her back. They all told her the same thing: "He's moved on." The final straw came when Sarah showed up at my house unannounced. It was a Saturday afternoon, and I was out in the yard working on some landscaping. She stood at the edge of the driveway, looking smaller and more defeated than I had ever seen her. "Oliver," she called out, her voice shaky. I walked over, keeping my expression neutral. "What do you want, Sarah?" She hesitated, as if trying to find the right words. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. For everything. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I had to tell you." I crossed my arms, waiting for her to continue. "I've lost everything," she admitted, tears streaming down her face. "Eric, my job, my friends. I don't even know who I am anymore. I thought I was doing the right thing, but I was wrong. I was so wrong." Her words hung in the air, heavy with regret. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. But then I remembered all the nights I had spent wondering what I had done wrong, all the humiliation and pain she had caused me. "You're right," I said finally. "You don't deserve my forgiveness. But I forgive you anyway, not for your sake, but for mine. I've moved on, Sarah. You should too." She nodded, her shoulders slumping as she turned to leave. As I watched her walk away, I felt a sense of closure. This was the last chapter of a story that no longer defined me. Life after Sarah was better than I could have ever imagined. Emily and I grew closer, building a relationship based on trust and respect. My career flourished, and I even started mentoring younger colleagues, something I had always wanted to do. The house that once felt like a prison became a home again, filled with laughter and warmth. As for Sarah, I heard through the grapevine that she eventually found a job and started rebuilding her life. We never spoke again, and I was fine with that. She was a chapter in my life that I had closed for good. Looking back, I realized that Sarah's betrayal had been a blessing in disguise. It had forced me to reevaluate my life, to rediscover who I was and what I deserved. Revenge might have been sweet, but it was the freedom that truly set me free. I had learned to let go, to move forward, and to build a life that was better than anything I could have imagined.